Welcome to the Saturation Podcast, where we have discussions with church leaders about the life of faith and the mission of the church. My name, Levi Pancake. I serve as a local church pastor in Syracuse, New York, and work with Saturation Church Planning as well. One such responsibility I have with Saturation Church Planning is to host this podcast. And so I have a guest today, church leader, Dr. Dwight Smith. We are continuing a discussion on a leadership crisis, maybe, or at least a self-perceived leadership crisis, a leadership shortage. And your admonition is, no, there's not a leadership shortage. God has given you everything you need. In fact, we got to rethink leadership and what that looks like in your local church. So in the last episode, we challenged the assumption that there's a leadership shortage. In this episode, we want to think a little bit more about what it might look like to train leaders in some foundational things. We call them Gatekeeper foundations, is what you call it. Who we are, identity, theology of leadership, gospel mission, intimacy with God. And want to think through a little bit more about leadership training. And I'll give you a moment to just talk about the perceived leadership shortage. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about what it might look like to get after deployment of leadership.
I wrote the article because I was trying to say the training of leadership, the good training of leadership, starts in the local church. It starts in local bodies.
Yeah.
It starts with people who have some maturity and have some competencies in their giftedness and beginning to spend enough time with others who are, in terms of age and maybe even experience, a little bit behind. And I'm willing to spend enough time with them, or we are, to begin to put them on the path of whatever level of responsibility in leadership God wants to give them. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at it from that point of view. And then I said, I think that this not only fits well what could be non-formally done by people like me who are beyond the organizational leadership anymore, but it could definitely be done by local churches if they want to think about how to get more people ready to do the diversified and decentralizing need of their people in the world and how they live. It could be done by local churches. But I was also after seminaries. I mean, I wrote it with that in mind. As seminaries, you need to reconstruct exactly how you do the whole task.
Right.
You're too monochrome. You're just too singular message.
Yeah.
And your job is not to educate. Your job is to train. And your training means that you're dealing with the whole person. And you're dealing with the whole person who's going to head into all kinds of different experiences. And some of them are going to demand a certain amount of diversity, but many of them are going to have the sameness to them because they rise from roots. And those roots are common to all people in every leadership at differing degrees of maturity. And so that's why I wrote it, and that's why it's on the website, because I prescribe or I recommend to leaders that you could replicate this.
Yeah.
A few of you have.
And the website is dwightpaulsmith.com. Yeah. You can find it on the articles tab. It's
There's not been a seminary who's wanted to do it. But having taught in seminary, I evaluate my time, and it's like, I'd rather you give me 30 young men or 30 young men and women, or give me 100 young men and women divided into groups of 30. Give me a couple years in intensive opportunities, and I'll take them through this, and they'll be prepared to be able to grow the rest of their life in the leadership task.
Well, actually, thinking about that, I've benefited from something like that. I went to a formal seminary. I benefited greatly from that. But that was paired with local church leadership and a ton of opportunities, which I was thankful for, and a specific training that you did over the course of a lot of phone calls in between, but 2 years, 1 week intensives every 6 months. And we talked about a lot of these things, and they formed patterns and rhythms of my own growth and maturation that I still lean on 15, 20 years after we did that.
The seminary experience could be that way if they wanted to totally reconceive it. But because they don't, it then simply gives you a certain capacity with certain gifts
Gave me a good knowledge base foundation of how to interact with resources. It gave me the original languages.
But that's limiting to the task of the whole leadership.
Yeah.
Which then has to be, somewhere down here, there's some foundations that can be laid that actually those other things can sit on.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't sit on it, then maybe the outcomes aren't there where they be, and that's the frustration. We know the outcome of what church should be, but we have the praxis that antagonizes it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the same in leadership. We could lay these foundations, take longer to do it. Don't rush it through. You got a lifetime of learning in front of you. But if we lay the foundations correctly, then all the other gift educational inputs
Mm-hmm.
can be built on that foundation and lead to a much more interdependent team that has a singular understanding of what the outcome should be through people, in people, for the world.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, listen, I'm dreaming.
Well,
once the American church creates, once any church in the world creates an institution, it doesn't know how to kill it. And it won't kill it. It won't even change it.
No, I mean, lack of funding and
well, that's all you can hope.
That's all.
That's all you can hope is that they run out of money and God forces them to reconceive it.
That's happening. I don't know if I'm hoping for it, but it is happening.
Well, there's things I hope for at my age that you shouldn't hope for.
Sure. Maybe I'll hope for them at 77, 78. You've said throughout all the time that I've known you that at the highest level of leadership in a local church, that the leadership should be spending at least 50% of its time devoted to leadership development.
Yep.
That is both formal and informal. Most of the leadership development is informal.
Yeah, at every level.
At every level.
Every
yes.
level of need, of influence in the church.
Yeah. So let's talk about then, let's make a grand presupposition.
Yep.
That the church leader we're talking to, or the leadership team, they've done it. They've freed up 50% of their time.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm ready. I want to invest in leaders.
Yep.
What you advocate in this article, the back half of the article, is what a potential grid or pathway or framework could look like for leadership development.
Yep.
And you start, I'll outline it, and we'll talk about this in 2 episodes, but you talk about a framework of identifying who we are, then identifying what we do, and then finally, like, how we do it. You call it Gatekeeper Foundations, Ministry Disciplines, and Ministry Applications.
They're categories.
They're categories. It's framework.
Yep. And inside of those categories are loads of topics.
Loads of topics, ton of different content. The local, but you have tried to serve the church, capital C church, and church leaders with, if you don't know what to do, here is a framework.
And because you don't know what to do, let me suggest to you that you trash what you're doing and do something different.
Okay.
Because you keep telling me you don't have enough leaders.
Yeah.
And I keep measuring the impact of your ministry, and it doesn't measure up to what we say we believe.
Yeah.
Yeah? So your praxis stinks. So let's go back and take a look at something different.
Okay, so I'm tracking
in my terms.
Yeah, so I want to focus in on that first component of your framework, the Gatekeeper Foundations, who we are. And you say that leadership training begins with who we are, not what we do. Why must leadership training start with who we are and not what we do?
Because that's where salvation begins. One of the great discoveries of my life as I got more intellectually inquisitive and maybe took advantage of all the other men and women who went before me, who documented their own experiences and their convictions and their learnings, was that the ontological arguments that are important to human experience, God answers in the first 3 chapters of Genesis. In my mind. And everything else is extending that thought until, because of Genesis 3, there is a complete destruction of what is, corrupted as it is, and a restoration of what was intended for Adam and Eve in the garden. Now, what that all looks like, we don't know, but I do believe that whatever the Garden of Eden would have produced in time for Adam and Eve, but it didn't because of Genesis 3. The new heaven and the new earth will produce, grow, expand, extend, and that will be eternity. God is not going to change the nature of the only thing that he created that is in his image, us. And so I look at that, and if I'm Adam, I open my eyes and I begin to look around, and I slowly realize all the things that are around me, and somehow God is instructing me. Now, I have a capacity that's in here, but God's instructing me, and I'm seeing I'm making maybe some wrong attributions, maybe right ones, but I'm learning. Somehow there had to be a maturation process. Now, he wasn't an infant, but nonetheless, there was a maturing of experience and knowledge. That I'm beginning to wonder, well, okay, there's a tree, there's an elephant, there's a monkey, there's a river, there's a mountain, whatever. How am I different from those? Now, I'm putting words in the discovery process of Adam.
Yeah, you can't find this aspect of the narrative in Genesis 1-2.
No.
Okay.
But I'm trying to machinate for myself that there had to be some process going on there. And Adam is wondering, well, who am I? And God makes it clear, at least to us, and somehow to him, you're mine. You're in my image and likeness. You're not a tree, you're not a monkey, you're not an elephant, you're not a rock, you're not a mountain, you're not a river. Those are all things that demonstrate my power, my genius, my glory, what I can create. But you are the only thing that bears my image and my likeness. Opposed to all that, you can cogitate, you can think, you can create, you can make new things, you can deduce, you can talk, you can make logical talk, you can hold a dialogue of relationship with me. I'm presuming all those things because we see that in man. And all those come from the image of God. And you're in my likeness. That is, you have the ability, you have the capacity to take responsibility for things, steward something. So it's all mine. I can steward it without you. But I've put you here, all of it, all the assets, everything we know and don't know. You can steward those things. I can steward them without you. But I'm creating you in my likeness and my image, and you are going to have a uniqueness to you that comes from being made by me. Who are you? Well, you're distinct. But more importantly, I want you to understand, you're mine. That's not a threat. That's not a curse. That's a promise. Mm-hmm. In that promise, you're not going to have the same sense of less cognitively defined existence. Monkeys don't sit around thinking about who are they and what are they here for. They have instinct, but they don't have understanding. Mm-hmm. You do. And you will be able to do what I'm asking you to do. Multiply, yep, well, they can multiply. But more importantly, by your multiplication, to have dominion, stewardship dominion, good, healthy, my kind of stewardship dominion of everything that I've created. I'm going to put you between me and it. Now, obviously, there's so many more dimensions of this that we're discovering exist and we don't have any relationship to. I think in eternity we will have relationship to it, but that's time. So who am I? That's a question that has to be answered by every person, and or they ignore it. Most people ignore it. Mm-hmm. Who am I? I'm me. Well, no, you're more than me. You're image and likeness of God. You bear the potential of his holiness, his righteousness. That's how Adam was created without test yet. But second, what am I here for? Okay, Adam, okay, God, I'm here and I'm in this and, I have a relationship with you. We're talking, I'm learning, I'm discovering that I can't talk to the animals like I'm talking to you. And we can put all this together. And as Lord, now, what am I here for? Am I just here in this garden to experience that? No. You're here to begin to steward the garden, because this will model your capacity to steward something greater. But we're going to start here. So I'm here to have a relationship with you because I'm like you I'm not God, but I'm in your likeness. And I'm here to represent you because I'm here in your image of stewardship. Not creator, but man can create things from things that are. That's an image of God capacity. But I'm not God. So who am I? I'm yours, and I joyfully embrace that relationship. Why am I here? You're here to take care of what belongs to me.
I've heard you say in your book, Divine Design, to put into two words, relationship
and representation.
You've also called it the be and the do.
And the do.
But this is foundational.
But there's a third question that I think presents itself in Genesis 1 and 2. God, am I alone in this? This is a big garden, just me, and I sense that maybe outside this garden there's something more. I see the stars in the sky, or I see something, whatever Adam's seeing, it's immense to him. Am I alone in this? Because you tell me to multiply and have dominion. Multiply what? How? And that's where then God says, well, I have this other gift that I'm going to give you that is also in my likeness and my image, but it's not you. This one is male. This one is in image and likeness, and it's female. I am giving you a completion. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a help me. Now, we got to be careful the words we use in all this because they distort God's intention. I'm giving you a completion that allows you to do what I've created you to do.
It's not a be completion, it's a do completion? Is that what you're saying?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. How in the world do you multiply? And we all know that it is the rub between people that creates even the image of God after sin. So God answers all those questions. And I think all three of them have domains of obligation. Mm-hmm. Relationship. Show me a man or a woman who's going to end up in leadership who is not growing in their relationship with God.
At any level.
At any level.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They're not, I'm uncomfortable. Why in the world would I give you responsibility? Because leadership is two things at least. Number one, it's influence. Mm-hmm. And number two, it's relational.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want you to have influence because your relationship will pollute them mm-hmm. in your lack of something. Mm-hmm. So the very essence of who I am has to be nurtured. God's given all that capacity now. Not only has he given us what he didn't give the Old Testament people, he's given us a written word that we can access that help us understand it. But he's given us a resident Holy Spirit who's there to form the image of Jesus Christ. Speak the words. Look, I'm going, guys, but I'm going to send you a Holy Spirit who will explain a lot of these things to you. You'll understand them better. That's a lifetime experience. Mm-hmm. So that's the first place I want to start. I would never send you to seminary if you didn't have that practice.
Right.
Why would I? But we do. Why would I? You don't have a praxis that the church has distorted that desperately needs to be restored, and I'm going to send you out for greater potential for influence? That's stupid. Why would I do that? So let's start there.
Yeah, so intimacy with God.
And that starts at the local church because the local church understands people.
Well, they know how to vet that. They can observe it. Yeah.
Oh, but you're 5,000 people, so Joe Blow comes down the path and you kind of like him. He's got a history. You know nothing about Joe Blow, mm-hmm. but you send him off.
Do you know someone named Joe Blow?
Well, Frank Mail. Well, whatever you want. Helen Judy. Yeah, I take your pick. So I want to see those things nurtured. Now that also becomes a part of, this whole thing becomes a part of the beginning of discipleship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and just for emphasis, leadership development is very base level. It is discipleship.
Absolutely. It's maturing people.
Yeah, it's maturing people. And we're talking about the beginning of maturing people for potential greater relational influence.
The second, who am I? What am I here for? Well, that we're going to answer in the second one here.
Yeah.
But I'm here because I'm here to represent God. And I want that to be placed deep in their heart. And I'm here to represent, it rightfully demands of me that the image of Jesus Christ come greater and greater and greater. Because I'm representing two things with God. Number one, I'm representing his image as distinct from everything else he created. Not God, but distinct. Some godlike qualities that don't make me God, but make me in the image of God. And the likeness, that is, I'm representing his assets. So I want to get that deep in their heart because the last thing I want, for example, by application, a young man who ends up in ministry, and I start to talk to him about what he does with his money, and I discover he doesn't give any money except to the building program or something like that, where he needs to be a model. And it's like, how in the world are you asking people to discipline their assets and steward them, but you don't steward yours? What are you doing? You're a horrible model. You don't open your home. You're not hospitable. You know? I mean, just go down the litany of things that we are growing to image of God. And those are all things that get said at the beginning. If they don't get said, I remember a discussion I had years ago. I don't remember who the guys were, so even if they listen and they're still alive, they wouldn't know I'm talking about. But I was sitting in the halls.
They would know. They're going to remember this interaction, I think.
Maybe. Good. I hope so. I hope they've changed.
I don't know what you're going to say. This is great.
I was sitting in a hall somewhere in my seminary that I went to, and I was listening to young guys talk. And both of them have never been in ministry because I knew who they were. They'd just come right straight through education. Undergrad, masters. They were going to go on to a doctorate too, probably. But they were having a debate between themselves as to how much financially they were worth in the church. And it's like, whoa, stop. Right now, I'm kicking you out of the school. Don't come back till you got that one figured out. This is nonsense. What's my value in the marketplace? And I've always told people to tell me, well, what about money? Well, if you're paying me, you don't pay me enough. If I'm a servant, you pay me too much. These guys clearly didn't have that attitude. But that came from formation. What are you here for? The third thing, this becomes a huge domain of growth. Am I alone? No, I'm not alone. And so one of the first places that young men and women have, first places they have the bumps in ministry, is they discover that as man and woman who loved each other emotionally and committed themselves before God with a covenant and then ended up in ministry, they discover that they have differing expectations about both these first two things. And all of a sudden, in ministry is not a great place to have to grow a marriage. And there's bumps along the path. And so, how many times have I talked with missionaries? Yeah, God's calling us. And I look to the woman, you have me. Every time I'm in a meeting, I'll say, well, tell me, what's your wife thinking?
But you meet with husbands and wives together. You'll ask her.
And I say to them, well, what's your wife think? Well, she's willing. Well, that's always a red flag for me. She's willing, but you're cold. I'm scared because that willing's going to be tested. And I don't know if she's strong enough to test that willingness in the way that you think will be tested and will come out victor. You're probably going to come out disappointed. Well, we're coming home. Why? My wife's not happy. Or when they get kids. Husband's committed, wife, I'm here, I'm submissive. They never engage this thing together. They didn't really talk about dreams together, even immaturely. dreams together and what it might mean. They didn't measure a bit of the cost. And so the kids, all of a sudden, they just get drug into it. The whole family comes home a mess. So, I mean, to not set the dial of these foundations at the very beginning is to invite problems all across the spectrum of the influence and relationship of the leadership task.
Well, here in this framework, when it comes to leadership development, you say discipleship, the first component of it, the beginning foundations of it, are working on the understanding of who they are and the spiritual disciplines and habits that continue to cultivate that, of relationship and representation. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. But it also becomes a priority for the church in terms of developing leadership, even if it's nascent. But secondarily, it's making enough of a priority of it for leadership who is more influential and has more experience, supposedly, and understands the Bible better, to actually spend the time doing that, to value it. Because if you don't, what are you doing? What kind of people are you casting to the world?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And that sets a trajectory for everything, because in our next episode, we'll talk about the particular skills, competencies, core competencies that leadership needs.
Yeah.
And then what equipping others in those things look like.
Yeah.
But it all starts here.
And it starts relational. I want to come back to that.
Yeah, please.
But, the church thinks it can just do a seminar. You come on in, we're going to do a seminar and
a cohort, a training program.
Yeah, we're going to do this seminar. No.
It's not merely a transfer of information. It has to be
a transfer of life.
Yeah, relational.
Absolutely.
So it can be slow at times, often, always.
Yeah.
Relationally intensive.
If there are people in the pastoral function of a church, let's just use that word. I don't like it. Let's say there's 5 or 6 of them. Or there are 5 or 6 between pastoral and elders or deacons or whatever you want to call them. Every one of those ought to have 3 or 4 young men that they're meeting with. And their wives ought to have their wives meeting. If they're married, they should have their wives
should be pouring in others.
Absolutely. It's like, you don't like that? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Because you're a problem. I don't care how articulate you are in the pulpit. You're a major problem. Get out of it if you don't want to do that, because that is your primary responsibility. Many of the men in ministry would be bored, would feel deprived, robbed, to only have 12 people to work with.
Why did you choose that number, Dwight?
And one was a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, eternally. But that was
He betrayed him.
He
Judas betrayed Jesus.
He knew that. He knew that.
Yeah.
But you don't have time for it. Listen, all your talking is useless to me. I don't care what you say. I can get other men who've written it better than you can say it and have lives to corroborate with it. I'd rather listen to them than to you. I'm getting older, so I can say those things. And so you're not willing to spend time with 8 or 10 young men in an intimate, long-term relational way around these 3 issues, shut up and go get a job. Oh, no, I'm too important. I mean, I can remember having a discussion. I've had it several times where men have failed and others have put them back into ministry because they said, well, their teaching voice is too important. Get out of here, you heretic. Get thee behind me, Satan. This is nonsense. Yeah? And that's why we end up with a weak generation of young leaders. These guys asking the question in the seminary about what value they came from. Either they had never been formed by people older than them, or their leadership did nothing to actually get them ready about the basic issues of life before they got educated in life. Yeah?
Well, for emphasis and clarity, I mean, what we tried to convey in this episode is that all leadership development, it starts with identity, knowing who we are.
It's a gatekeeper.
With knowing who we are before what we do.
And you remember one thing, and I'll quit with it. When I was in my early 50s, I felt like God was telling me, give up organizational leadership. Now, I was also going through transitions and I was going through a capturing of these ideas of SCP and board members talking to me about the importance of those in my life and all, that whole discussion time. But I felt like God was saying to me, I want you to give up organization. And I already am convinced of that anyhow, because it's like, they're great people, I love them, but this is not going to accomplish this other thing. But more importantly, God was saying to me, I want you to expect from me that God will give you, before you die, 1,000 younger than you, men and women in the world on whose backs I will build the evangelization of their nation.
Yeah.
Now, I'd worked with men that was their vision, and they had strategies for it, and I still advocate those strategies. But for me, it was, you don't need to be seen. Your picture doesn't need to be on the wall. Nobody needs to name a building after you.
How about a podcast? Was that in the...
Whatever, that came later. If you're forgotten, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you never write a book, because by then I hadn't. I may have been dabbling in the preparations of them, but I hadn't written a book. I want you to find, I'll give you 1,000. Now, I think you would know. There's a lot more than that in this world.
Yeah. Well, life transference.
Yeah.
I mean,
because it was going to take
Christ
that kind of concentration and time to do that more important task.
Yeah.
Rather than, because I've had people ask me, why didn't you just take a big church? Because God says something different. And because I don't really think that's as strategic as these guys think it is. Because if we're out to reach the world, 1,000 younger men and women will do a better job of that than all your building and all your money and all your sermons. Because they get transformed at the base level, this entry level, and I don't know what happens when all your teaching. Some of them do, but a lot of them just, their heads, and some of them don't even hear what you say.
Yeah.
No, I'm not willing. No.
Well,
they have to be accountable for that, not me.
Yeah.
But it is an accountability they have on their back if they're going to lead a church. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your investment, appreciate your time and your thoughts on these matters.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Saturation Podcast, where we have discussions with church leaders about the life of faith and mission of the church. This podcast is produced by Saturation Church Planning. Saturation Church Planning exists to glorify God through partnering with church leaders in nations, regions, cities throughout the world towards the full evangelization of those places through the mobilization of the church. For more information, please visit scpglobal.org.